Have you been wondering if the new app Amadine is a good designer for you on Mac or iPad? Well, that's what we're here to talk about today. Hello, my name is Ben Nielsen and I am a media design educator, and welcome back to another Can It Design Challenge. This is where we take different apps that are some kind of design tool and see if they really can design professional level work. The things that we need to be able to do here are create whatever the design challenge is and then get it out of the application in a form that we could actually use it in. Today we're talking about the app Amadine. Now, I first saw this app when it was a sponsor on Brad Colbo's channel. So if you don't watch Brad Colbo, he's an art channel that talks about lots of different applications like Illustrator and Procreate and Affinity, and he teaches a lot of different art techniques. And Amadine was a sponsor on his channel, but he didn't really delve into the specifics of it. So I decided this was something that I would like to check out and share with all of you. Now, I've downloaded the free trial on Mac. There is no free trial on iPad and iPhone, as is often the case, because you can't have a free trial and then get the full app without an in-app purchase. And if you don't want to have your app have in-app purchases, that makes it kind of difficult. So the free trial is on the Mac, so we're going to go ahead and try that. But if you would like me to go ahead and get the app and check it out on the iPad, let me know that in the comments as well. So it looks like this app costs about $20 on Mac and about $10 on iPad, depending on where you are in the world. Those numbers could change a little bit, but those are the US prices. And it looks like this app is primarily aimed at being a pretty simple alternative, a more approachable alternative to Adobe Illustrator. So let's go ahead and see what this looks like. It's a great price point, but if it can't do the work that we need to do, then it won't really matter. And our challenge today is to create a monochromatic underwater scene. This comes from new friend of the channel, Miss Chele Oz. So we're going to go ahead and see if this is something that we could do in Amadine. Okay, so here we are in Amadine. I've just started it. I've never looked at it before, but we are looking at the very opening splash screen here, which looks like it starts you out with some tutorials. So that's pretty good. That means that they are aimed at education right off the bat, which is great for new beginners especially. But we aren't going to go and watch any tutorials today, but it looks like they have quite a few and then some how-to articles. This does give us an idea of what kinds of things we'll be able to create. So it looks like there's a move and selection tool, simple shapes, line and elliptical arc tools, drawing with a pen tool, so there's going to be a pen, editing paths, a draw tool, working with different sheets, which I'm assuming are like artboards, transforming, Boolean operations. Of course, that's great. Of course, we would love it if there was a shape builder tool, but we certainly aren't expecting that since we haven't even seen that in Affinity yet. And then clipping masks. So let's go ahead and get started. I think we can just click New Document down here. Let's just start with a standard page size. Okay, 8.5 by 11. It doesn't look like there's a lot of options for what you're going to set up when you set up the document. It's pretty standard, width and height. You can choose what units you're working in and whether you're in landscape or portrait orientation. But that's pretty much it. Doesn't look like there's any bleed or slug or any of those print-centric features, which we wouldn't necessarily expect from a vector app. Okay, let's go ahead and see what we can do after we create it. Okay, so it immediately tells me this is not licensed and export is disabled and a watermark will be printed over each document. So this is just to try it. We'll be able to look at what the export options are to see if we can get something out of it. Obviously, they need us to pay for it if we're going to use it. And if you don't like to pay for apps, well, you should go ahead and check out my video here on why iPad apps should not be free. And of course, I feel the same way about Mac apps. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and look at some tools. We're trying to create a monochromatic underwater scene. So one of the first things that I want to look for here is how I'm going to deal with color. Looking around, the interface looks, of course, very familiar to what we might expect. So we've got tools down the left-hand side. I'm just going to quickly check them out. Move tool, selection tool, makes sense. There's a lasso tool, a pen tool, a draw tool, which I'm assuming is pencil tool. Path width tool, so that's just a width tool. Okay, great. Looks like this is a gradient tool. Of course, a text tool, knife tool, scissors, eraser, eyedropper, zoom. Let's just see if zoom works with the alt scroll. Okay, it does. It's a little choppy, but it does work. Free transform tool, rectangle, rounded rectangle, ellipse, polygon, star, line, elliptical arc, and a sheets tool. I'm assuming that the sheets tool is the artboard tool. It looks very similar to the artboard tool. So the tools are definitely more limited than some other programs, right? A lot more limited than Illustrator, significantly more limited than Affinity Designer, but we know that that's what they're going for. And one of the things when we are judging apps, there's two things that we need to think about. We need to think about first whether or not it can do the job that we needed to do. Will it work for us? But the other thing that we have to think about is what was the developer trying to do? Maybe they weren't trying to make the app for us. Maybe they were trying to make something different. And in this case, they're trying to make a simple vector graphics editor. So we still want to be able to do a professional design in it, but we can't judge it based on whether or not it's as complicated as some other designs. And this does have an iPhone app, and so maybe it's better for it to be simple. All right, let's see what we can do as far as drawing a monochromatic underwater scene. So monochromatic means we're only going to use one color. So we really need to find out if there's a way for us to add in swatches first. There's an appearance panel over here. And we can adjust colors, gradients. Looks like swatches are down here at the bottom. See if there's a way to open a color panel. I've just gone up to the window menu. Yeah, very few panels. There's a geometry panel, an appearance panel, layers panel, and a sheets panel. Just check the view here. I think that's pretty much it. So it looks like when we open the color view is where we get our swatches from. We can't have the swatches in some other spot. So let's try, okay, when we add it, it just adds the new swatch. Okay, so let's go ahead and looks like we can copy in some hex codes here. And we have an eyedropper tool. So I'm going to jump over to Adobe Color and grab a screenshot of some color swatches. So I'm going to go with a monochromatic. Command-Shift-4 to grab the screenshot. I'm just going to go ahead and drop the screenshot. Doesn't look like I can drop the screenshot in. Interesting. Okay, let's try to place it. File. Interesting. Maybe import? Okay, so we have to import it. We can't just drag in the file. So now that we've got this, we can go ahead and we can start making our swatches. Color. Grab our eyedropper tool, and then we'll click plus to add it in to the end. This is going to be a very interesting challenge for me because abstract is not one of my strong suits. I don't do a lot of abstract. So trying to think through this and do some sketching on it has really been an interesting exercise for me because it's going to be this monochromatic style. So I'm basically just going to be using this teal color. That's it. We need to be able to create this underwater scene. First things first, let's go ahead and try out a shape tool. So we'll start with just a rectangle and see what we get. Give us some water here. I think I want my water to be darker. So let's go to the fill. And we'll give it our dark color. Now let's grab another rectangle and we'll give it a sky. Here it looks like we've got snapping, which is of course a feature that you don't always notice unless you don't have it. Let's change this to our lightest color. So we're using this as the sky. And so under the water down here is where we're going to put in our scene. And everything needs to be abstracted. So we're going to be dealing with very simple shapes. Of course, I do want to try out merging some shapes just to make sure that that's something we can do here. So let's go ahead and let's grab a polygon tool and let's see how we get a triangle here. Drag this out and let's see if the arrow keys work. No, the arrow keys do not work. Okay, let's select that and delete it. And you can see that things are changing up in the top as I'm doing this. So there is a contextual toolbar. Okay, and we can adjust the way the tools look, but I'll keep them like this for now. And we can change the sides of the polygon. So let's change it to 3 so we can get a triangle. And Shift will keep it straight up and down. Okay, so we've got that. So I'm going to go for a fish here, abstracted. Let's see how we rotate. Okay, rotate, and holding down Shift will keep it in, looks like maybe 15-degree increments, which is great. Let's see if we can do an Option drag to duplicate. Okay, we can. Perfect. So a lot of the things that we would expect are here. Let's make this one bigger. A little bit of an abstracted fish here. We'll give it a medium color. And then let's see if we can group them together. Command G works, that groups them. Okay, so you're not going to find too many things that don't work that you would be expecting to in this app. So far, it's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead. This is going to be abstract underwater scene. Let's add in some circles or ellipses here. That could be maybe some bubbles just coming up. I'm going to go with a nice light color for those bubbles, maybe the same as the sky. Duplicate it, zoom in. Again, the zoom is not super smooth, but it does work. Looks like Option will let us resize to the center. Shift will keep the proportion. Just do a couple of these. Okay, next we might want to add just a little bit of a sheen to those bubbles, just to give them a little bit of depth. I think even though this is monochromatic, it might be okay if we use a little bit of white for those. So let's try just our pen tool or our draw tool. Let's try our draw tool and see what that does. Okay, so it looks like we can draw and then it smooths it out, and we have smoothing controls up here at the top. So just at 2, I think that actually worked fine. So let's go ahead and see what we can do with our stroke. Looks like in the stroke, we can change this to white. Go and zoom way in here. And let's see in the stroke, we can go to our, looks like we have a settings gear here in the stroke. So let's go there and let's round those out. Nice. Okay, so it looks like we have most of our stroke options. Can give it a little dot or dash. Different profile with profiles, flip, okay, and different endpoints. Nice. That's set up quite nicely. It looks very good. So what I want is, basically just like that. Maybe just a 1 point there, and that, so that I have just this little sheen on the bubble. Very nice. Let's grab that line, duplicate it over here. Of course, we'll have to shrink it. And then let's see if we can do a flip. So in geometry, we have a flip, so we'll flip that. Let's grab our node tool and see if we can just adjust this slightly. I'm trying to do as many things as possible while doing this challenge to just kind of check out the differences in what we can do. So we're trying lines, we're trying shapes, we're trying to adjust the nodes. Okay, so definitely there's plenty that we can do here. Okay, I think we're going for abstract, so we've got this fish that is just made out of triangles. So as we abstract things, we're trying to get them down to not just their basic shapes, but like the basicest of the basic shapes, I think, right? We're just trying to abstract them down. So let's go ahead and see what we can do to maybe give this kind of a wave feel at the top. And this will be our chance to merge this, I think. So taking our pen tool, try and drag out some pretty even waves here. And the snapping seems to be quite good, so we're able to make that work. So we can line these things up. A little bit off alignment with our second wave, but that's fine. We don't need these to be perfect. Even though they're abstracted, they can still look a little organic. Okay, so that's the pen tool. Let's see if we can do an escape there. And it looks like we might need to drag our point just over to the edge. Let's give that no line, which I think we can do by, not sure. I do not see a white with red slash through it, which is what I would normally expect to see. Perhaps we can just turn off the stroke completely. Let's select the rectangle below, and then let's see if we can merge them. Now it said that there were Pathfinder operations. Yes, so once you select two, the Pathfinder operations and the alignment tools appear at the top. So let's merge it. Doesn't look like we can get a live preview. Okay, so it's created a compound shape out of those. Let's fill them with the dark color again. Okay. Oddly, it has done that, and that may just be because my shape was not a closed shape, but we have Control Z, so that is no problem. Let's go ahead and see if we can pick that back up here and close the shape. Okay, sorry about that. The camera stopped recording partway through, but I think we are good to go now. We're still working on seeing if we can merge these shapes together. And I think the problem might be that I'm using kind of this abstract organic shape here. And so just to test out more of the shape functions here, we're going to go ahead and add in some circles and see what we can do with that. First thing I want to do though is actually try to see if I can copy this artboard, or as they're calling it a, what are they calling it? A sheet. So let's see, if I zoom out here, can I just copy this sheet over? I can. So it looks like they do not separate out the artboards into separate layers. I wonder if they separate it out if you make a new artboard rather than copying it. Let's try that. Just go here. Doesn't look like it. Interesting. Okay, so the artboard tool could probably use some refinement. Okay, let's go over to this one and let's work on it here. Try grabbing a circle. This is really just going to be to test our ability to merge these shapes together. Okay, and it does look like when you do a merge, they make it a compound shape, so it remains one shape. So you can still adjust it, which is nice. And it looks like you then have an expand feature if you need to. Oops. Interesting. Looks like it was glitching there for a second. I am not sure what was happening. See if they have a repeat duplicate here. Duplicate. So they have a duplicate, but it looks like it doesn't repeat your last action. Okay. Let's go grab this compound path. Shift grab this and we'll see what a subtract does. Okay, so there's a subtract. Grab this. Do a union. Grab the next one. Subtract. Grab the next one. Union. Grab the next one. Subtract. Okay, then we need to take our sky, and we just need to bring it further down. And then if we look at our compound shape, we've got quite the stacking of compound shapes here. So at this point, I think the best thing that we could do would be to expand this compound shape so that we just have one shape to deal with here, and we've got our waves. Okay, now our compound shape is of course come to the top, so we got to move it back to the front. And things are a little bit messy here. Let's click on our sky so we can see where we're at. Okay. Whoops. Need this guy to be in back. All right, so we've got most of the basics down here. We've been able to draw shapes, we've been able to merge shapes, we've been able to use strokes, and we've been able to use the pen tool. So basically what we need is here. Let's just go ahead and try adding in a few more things, seeing if we can kind of complete this design. I'll probably go ahead and just speed this part of the video up. Okay, so I think we're going to wrap up this design here. This is a monochromatic underwater scene. And a big shout out, of course, to Miss Chella Oz, who suggested this to me as a design challenge. And it's been a great design challenge to try and work inside of this new vector program, Amadine. Now, I do want to mention a few things here. This program is only $20 for being on the Mac and $10 for being on the iPad. So it already comes in lower than even Affinity Designer, and it is simpler than Affinity Designer. There's no pixel persona here. There's a lot of things that it can't do. There are many, many things that exist in Illustrator that it can't do. But it is doing an impressively good job at what it is trying to do, which is provide a very simple alternative. So the last thing that we need to do is see what we could export it as to see if it's useful for us to actually use this for professional work. If we can't get it out, and of course we won't be able to get it out because we're using the trial, but if we couldn't get it out with the paid version, then we wouldn't be able to use it for professional work. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. But again, at this point, I am very impressed with what it has been able to do. Its performance has been very good, and it seems to be working quite well. And it has a lot of the basic features that are needed by a designer. So let's go ahead and see what we can do to export it. Let's go up here to File, and we will choose Export. And it looks like we have the options of SVG, EPS, PDF, TIFF, PNG, and JPEG. Those are all of the options that we would expect. And those are really the options that most clients are going to want. A few clients would probably want an AI file, which you have to do in Illustrator. That's really the only way to do it. We can't do anything about that. But it does look like we could get it out. We won't be able to because we aren't allowed to export. You can choose to document or choose a specific sheet. That's perfect. And those are the file formats that we would need. So let's go ahead and click cancel there. So the answer to the question, can Amadine design, is yes. It can design. You could use this. You could perform professional work in here. You could create icons. You could create logos. You could do some basic illustration. I don't see any brush tool in here, so you couldn't do a lot of the complex illustration that you might want to be able to do in, say, an app like Affinity Designer or Affinity Photo or Procreate. But it definitely could be used for a lot of design tools. You could do mockups in here. There's a whole host of things that you could do in here right now, and you could do that for 20 bucks on the Mac or $10 on the iPad. Now I just want to reiterate, Amadine hasn't contacted me, they haven't sponsored this video or given me the app. I am just looking at it as part of the Can It Design Challenge to see what it can do. And the answer is yes, it's pretty good and it's very cheap. So it is a great option, I think, for a beginner starting out with a vector program. It's a great way to kind of get your feet wet in the world of vectors and decide if something is a little bit higher up is going to be better for you. Now at this point, with Affinity half off right now, there's only $5 difference between Amadine on Mac and Affinity on Mac. And so I would go for Affinity because you're buying into an ecosystem with Affinity. It's a lot more of a robust program, and it has publisher and photo that go along with it. And so you can kind of buy into that ecosystem. And on the iPad side, Affinity at half off is just $10. So it's going to be the same as Amadine. So I would again go for Affinity at this point in time if you're watching this while the half off sale is still going on. But if you like the look of Amadine, or if you are just a beginner trying to get started and you feel a little bit overwhelmed by the Affinity programs, then go ahead and I think take a look at Amadine. You can at least download the free trial and try it out and see how it works for you. Okay, remember to comment with your thoughts below. Let me know if you've used Amadine or if you think you might want to try using Amadine. And remember, if you found any value in this video, go ahead and give it a like. And if you have any ideas for future design challenges, whether apps that I should use or things that I should try out inside of apps, go ahead and drop those in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.